I woke up to the acrid smell of fresh spray paint drifting through my bedroom window. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I stumbled outside in my bathrobe, and what I saw made my blood boil. My pristine white garage door was covered in crude, dripping graffiti. Bright red letters spelled out vulgar words I won't repeat, along with poorly drawn symbols that would make a middle schooler cringe. But here's the kicker. I had security cameras, 3 of them positioned perfectly to catch anyone foolish enough to mess with my property. I pulled up the footage on my phone, and there he was, Tyler Morrison, 17 years old and grinning like an idiot as he shook the spray paint can. The kid was Karen Morrison's precious son, and he was having the time of his life vandalizing my garage at 2 in the morning. The video showed him taking his sweet time, even stopping to admire his handiwork before giving the camera a mocking wave. This wasn't some random act of teenage rebellion. This was personal. Karen Morrison had been the bane of my existence for the past 8 months. As president of our Willowbrook HOA, she wielded her tiny amount of power like a medieval tyrant. The woman lived and breathed HOA violations. She'd written me up for everything from having my trash cans visible for 30 minutes past pickup time to planting the wrong shade of marigolds in my flower bed. According to Karen, my flowers were sunset orange when the approved color was classic orange. I kid you not. She had a color chart. Her son, Tyler, had inherited his mother's entitled attitude. But with none of her fake politeness, he'd blast music from his car in the driveway until midnight. Let his friends park across my mailbox and throw parties that left beer cans scattered across the neighborhood. When neighbors complained, Karen would smile sweetly and promise to have a talk with him. But nothing ever changed. Tyler knew Mommy would protect him, and he made sure everyone else knew it too. I'd become Karen's #1 target after I started questioning her decisions at HOA meetings. When she tried to pass a rule requiring all residents to use the same brand of outdoor lighting, I asked to see the financial justification when she wanted to fine people for having delivery trucks in their driveways for more than 15 minutes. I pointed out how unrealistic that was. Karen didn't appreciate having her authority challenged, especially not by someone who actually read the HOA bylaws and knew what she could and couldn't legally enforce. As I stood there staring at my ruined garage door, neighbors began emerging from their houses. The smell had woken up half the street. Mrs. Patterson from next door shook her head in disgust. I saw that boy last night around 10. She said he was walking around with a backpack looking at houses. Thought it was strange. Mr. Chen from across the street was even more helpful. Tyler was bragging to my teenager yesterday about how he could do whatever he wanted because his mom runs. The HOA said nobody could touch him. The man's expression was grim. My son didn't think it was funny. But Tyler kept going on about how he was planning something that would really mess with you. I spent the next hour documenting everything, photos from every angle, screenshots of the security footage, written statements from the neighbors who'd witnessed Tyler's behavior. This wasn't going to be swept under the rug like his previous antics. I'd had enough of the Morrison family's reign of terror, and I had the evidence to prove this was deliberate vandalism, not some harmless prank at exactly 8 a.m. I called the police non-emergency line and filed a formal report. The officer who took my call seemed genuinely interested when I mentioned I had clear video evidence. "We'll send someone out this morning," he assured me. "Make sure you have everything ready to show them." I also called my insurance company and got quotes from 3 different contractors for garage door replacement. This was going to cost someone serious money. Officer Martinez arrived around 10:30, and I could tell he meant business. He was thorough, professional, and clearly unimpressed when I showed him the security footage. That's definitely criminal mischief, he said, watching Tyler wave at the camera, probably around $800 in damage, which makes it a Class A misdemeanor. We'll need to speak with the suspect and his parents. 20 minutes later, Karen Morrison came marching down the street like a general heading into battle. She was perfectly dressed, despite the early hour, her blonde hair styled and her makeup flawless. "Officer, I'm sure this is all a big misunderstanding," she began before Martinez had even introduced himself. "Boys will be. Boys, you know how it is. I'm sure we can work this out between neighbors." "Martine wasn't buying it, ma'am. We have clear video evidence of your son vandalizing this man's property. This isn't a neighborhood dispute. It's a criminal matter." Karen's smile faltered for just a moment before snapping back into place. "Well, I'm president of the HOA here, and I think I know what's best for our community. Surely we don't need to involve the legal system over a little paint. The law doesn't recognize HOA authority in criminal matters," Martinez replied firmly. "Your son will need to come down to the station for questioning." That's when Karen's mask finally slipped. Her voice turned sharp and demanding. "Do you know who I am? I have connections in this city. Nothing is going to happen to my son over some silly prank. But something was happening." Martinez's investigation revealed this wasn't Tyler's first offense. 3 other neighbors came forward with security footage and stories of similar incidents. Over the past 6 months, Mrs. Rodriguez had video of Tyler keying her car after she complained about his loud music. The Johnsons had caught him throwing eggs at their house after they reported one of his parties. The evidence was overwhelming and the pattern was clear. Karen tried every trick in her playbook. She offered to pay for the damage herself. If we'd keep this quiet, she threatened to fine me for various made-up HOA violations. She even tried to claim I'd somehow provoked her son by being hostile at HOA meetings. But Officer Martinez had seen enough entitled parents to recognize her tactics, and he wasn't impressed by her desperation. The turning point came when Tyler himself was brought in for questioning without his mother's protection. The kid crumbled faster than a stale cookie. He admitted to everything, even bragging about how he'd planned the garage incident for weeks. "My mom always fixes everything for me," he told the officers with shocking honesty. "She says people like him need to learn their place." 2 days later, the inevitable happened. Officer Martinez showed up at the Morrison house with an arrest warrant. I watched from my living room window as Tyler was led away in handcuffs, his confident smirk replaced by genuine fear. Karen screamed at the officers about lawsuits and connections, but her threats rang hollow. Her son was being charged with criminal mischief in the first degree, and there was nothing her HOA presidency could do about it. The arrest sent shockwaves through our quiet neighborhood. Karen had spent years convincing everyone she was untouchable, that her position gave her special status. Seeing her son treated like any other criminal shattered that illusion completely. Neighbors who'd suffered in silence for years suddenly found their courage, and stories about the Morrison family's behavior began pouring out. 3 weeks later, we held a special HOA meeting that Karen tried to control from the moment it started. She attempted to dismiss the recent unpleasantness and move on to her usual agenda of petty rule enforcement. But the room was packed with angry residents who'd finally had enough motion after motion was made to remove her from the board. Each one passing by overwhelming margins, Karen's face went through a spectacular range of emotions as she realized what was happening. Shock anger, Desperate bargaining and finally defeated acceptance as the votes were counted. "You're making a huge mistake," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "This neighborhood will fall apart without proper leadership," but even her closest allies had abandoned her, unwilling to associate with someone whose family had become a legal liability. The final blow came when Tyler's case went to court. 2 months later, he was sentenced to 6 months in juvenile detention, 3 years of probation, and ordered to pay full restitution for all the damage he'd caused. The total came to over $4,000 when you included everyone's property. Repairs. Karen sat in the courtroom looking stunned as the judge explained that her son's privileged upbringing had actually worked against him, showing a pattern of entitled behavior that needed serious correction. "Your Honor," Karen tried to interrupt, "surely house arrest would be more appropriate for a first-time offender." The judge fixed her with a stern look. "Mrs. Morrison, this is hardly a first offense. Your son has terrorized this neighborhood for months. While you enabled his behavior, 6 months in detention might teach him the accountability you clearly failed to provide." Karen's mouth fell open in shock as the reality of her son's punishment finally hit.